it's Greg from Fujifilm Canada.
And I'm Billy Luong, and together
we're the Fuji Guys.
We
are back for another video. This one is on the F200 about the F button. The F button is a cool feature that you find on Fuji cameras. It's unique to our cameras, and really it's like, think of it as the film button. And when you go to buy film, or when you used to go to buy film, unfortunately, you would choose things like the number of exposures, the ISO sensitivity, whether you wanted black and white or color film. There was actually different qualities of film out there and things like this. So where digital cameras don't use film per se, the Fuji cameras do have this F button, which is a great feature. Billy's going to drive us through that right now and show you what settings you'll find there.
Sure. So the F button, or the Find Pics button, we sort of like to refer to as the film button, because we are sort of like walking into a film store. In the shooting mode, when you push the F button, okay, so I'm going to push that right there, you can see that you can change things like the ISO. And the ISO allows you to change the sensitivity in the camera, just like walking into a film store. You're looking at a box that says 400 speed film. It looks like indoor shots, I guess. That's where you would be able to change that setting. If you go down, the next size you can do is the image size. And the image size really, even though this camera is a 12 megapixel camera, you don't have to shoot at 12 megapixels. You can set it up to shoot at lower resolutions. And of course, if you're on vacation, I guess, and you're sort of running out of room on your card, it's a great way of getting a little bit more shot in that card, because it takes less room.
Personally, I like to shoot everything at high resolution, Billy, because you can always resize it later, either in the camera or in the software on your computer. Of course, one of the benefits of resizing the image is if you need to email something or put it into a PowerPoint presentation, you do want a small file. But I like to shoot things at the high resolution mode and save them in the camera and my computer that way and resize them later.
Great.
As a rule.
Okay, so if we look at the image size, although we can change the resolution, what you'll also notice with this camera is that you'll see numbers beside the resolution being 4:3, 3:2, and 6:9. And that really is the ratio of what we're shooting at. If we look at, I guess, computer screens that we normally see, or TV screens, they're normally at the 4:3 ratios. But if we go to make a print at a film store, usually they come back as a 4:6 print. They're set to 3:2.
Which is a 3:2 aspect ratio. Yeah, and of course your large flat screen HD TVs at home are that new 16:9 aspect ratio.
So you have great options in that, and I personally like to shoot in a 3:2 ratio because
me too.
I make a lot of 4:6 prints, and I never have to worry about my head or my feet getting cropped off when I get these prints done at a local lab that I go to. So that's the image size. What we're also going to look at is the film simulation option in the camera. So if we go back in the F button, we'll notice that in the film simulation, we have the Pro Via or standard film, and that's sort of like the film that you would buy out of the counter. The color, the contrast, it's set to be sort of great for, I guess, everyday shooting.
Yeah, a more neutral color base on the Pro Via films, and this is what it's simulating when you do that setting.
Of course, we have black and white. Sort of like black and white film, if you want to get a little bit more, I guess, artsy-fartsy, as Greg would be saying. And of course, we have a sort of, not really film, Greg, but you're probably better to explain this.
Well, sepia is the effect that you would get, and it's most associated with antique pictures. And I don't want to go into the whole story of how sepia really happens, but it was when old black and white pictures would actually, when the silver in there would start rusting, when it would be around so long, it would give you this kind of rusty or sepia tone look to the pictures. So that's it's simulating that. So if you want to make something look like an old-fashioned picture,
it's funny how new technology, you want to get back to that old style.
Everything that was old was new again.
Now, what's kind of unique is in the menu systems, we quickly talked about these three main options, but if we get away from certain automatic features, you'll notice that if we set it to, say, the program auto mode and we go into the F button, we have a lot more control over other options of that film. Things like white balance. So if we go down to the menu and switch to white balance, in this camera you have the automatic mode. There's actually a custom mode that you can custom set the white balance for the scene. There's also preset modes as well. So if you're shooting on a nice bright sunny day, you can have a sort of a sunshine setting. There's also cloudy settings, a fluorescent setting. And again, if you change these settings on the camera yourself and you're in different certain lighting conditions, you may get different color casts. So if you're shooting outdoors, it gives you much more warmer cast. If you're shooting under fluorescent lighting, it gives you, I think, a more cooler appeal. So you want to correct that so that your face doesn't look kind of blue. So that's some of the options in that. There's also an underwater option for white balance. Just make sure this camera is not an underwater camera, so you do have to buy yourself a waterproof casing for this camera if you want to take it underwater, but it will correct the blue color cast on that.
Yeah, one other thing I'd say about white balance is that particularly on the F200 camera, the one we're showing right now, the auto white balance setting that Fuji has in this processing is excellent. It's extremely accurate, and just like the manual exposure that we were talking about in the other video, the likelihood that you'll need to use manual white balance settings is pretty minimal. But again, I'll say it over again, is that it's a great camera because it has these options and you can fine-tune it, whether it's for special effects or not.
And I totally agree. Even myself, when I'm out shooting, I rarely use any manual controls in terms of changing the white balance. The auto white balance does such an excellent job that 99% of my pictures come out just perfect in terms of the proper lighting. Great. Going to other options in the menu system of the F button. Again, if you go away from modes like auto mode, you can access now things like dynamic range. And in the dynamic range mode, we can change things to like 100%, 200%. There's also a 400% option as well in there, depending on the settings that you have the camera set to. And it's just that great little option where you're shooting high contrast scenes, sort of like what we talked about, the EXR mode. Here's where you can sort of manually set it yourself and get that best possible picture that you want. Now, please, understand that in dynamic range modes, if you go high and high in that setting, your pictures may look a little bit more flat, and that's just the way it's designed in that sense. So you may not always want to shoot in the greatest of dynamic range if you want to have a little bit more depth to the picture.
Yeah, every situation is going to call for, one of these settings is going to optimize it one way or the other. Again, for you out there that are watching these videos, leaving it on fully automatic is maybe one of the best options you've got. This camera is very intuitive and very accurate in its automatic settings.
So just the last thing I want to talk about the F button really is that in some of these settings that we talked about earlier today, you're not going to see all these options available to you in every single setting of the camera. So if you do set it to the automatic mode, because it's push here, dummy, PhD type of settings, you're not going to have true access to things like dynamic range or white balance. But if you go in and get more creative and you have that knowledge now of your new FinePix F200, you want to get more control of that and you switch to the program modes or other manual modes, you will now open up options that you can switch in like white balance.
Exactly.
So it can be a very simple camera to use, and it can also be a very sophisticated camera as well, which, this is why we love this camera at Fuji.
There you go. So the F button, again, to summarize, is another unique feature for Fuji. It's like selecting your custom-made film for every picture you take, and it's only found on Fuji. And so thanks for the description on that one, Billy. So signing out, I'm Greg from Fuji Canada.
And I'm Billy, and together,
we're the Fuji Guys.
Fuji Guys.
See you next time.